Fission radio show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear. Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. Today is January 30th, 2018. I want to thank you for joining us. And please remember to tell your friends and family that they have to go online and type in www.ucy.tv/AOF to find our radio show. It kind of occurred to me last night that our show says OF. Which I'm sure a lot of people in our chat room are going, well, that makes sense. So it is kind of a pain in the neck to have to think about that. We're living in the age of fission, isn't it? But it is our reality, and we didn't really realize what that meant. I think for myself and millions of others who, until Fukushima, they started to wake up, I think, when 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, those things happened, but then that was easily covered up. But Fukushima is just still raging. We're coming on 7 years of Fukushima still leaking. Hervé Courtois sent me his blog, Dun Renard, and on there he has, like, he takes you, maybe I'll read that to you. I wanted to talk to you about something else. I had on a guest schedule today that is a whistleblower, so to speak, and he had a medical emergency. He had to go to the doctor. So he is going to be back with us on the 20th. And so I really am not prepared to have anything because I had a guest planned. But I do have some things. I went to the internet and did pick out some things I'd like to read to you. If anybody wants to call in, the phone number is 718-717-8106. And if not, you know what happens here is I either read poetry or read the stories that I want to read. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to take us to this idea. This piqued my interest on the Hill. GOP senator puts hold on Trump energy nominee. Now, why would a GOP senator put a hold on... here, there. That's Firefox doing its weird stuff. I know I shouldn't be using Firefox, but I don't know why I do. I don't know. I don't like the Go Duck Go thing. I don't like how it looks. Let's just put it that way. So this is what it's about. Republican Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming, where there's lots of uranium mines, is placing on hold President Trump's nominee to oversee the Department of Energy's environmental cleanup programs. Barrasso said during a confirmation hearing with the State Energy and Natural Resources Committee last Thursday that he was placing a hold on Ann White's nomination until the Energy Department committed to ending its process of reselling excess government-owned uranium on the market. Barrasso said the process hurts state's uranium mining industry. The Energy Department frequently sells excess uranium it owns in order to finance cleanup operations and decommissioning nuclear sites. Wow. So if we stop selling the uranium, I mean, we ought not to be doing anything with uranium. Uranium ought to be kept in the ground, and we ought to start reburying it, maybe. I'm going to continue with this article. It says, you aren't able to give me a firm commitment to immediately halt these barters, something that Energy Secretary Rick Perry told me he wants to do. For that reason, I'm unable to support a confirmation at this time and withhold the confirmation until the department ends its practice of bartering excess uranium. He says this, I think it's preserving good-paying uranium jobs and uranium security in America. So for him, it's about the jobs. It's not about the uranium. Earth Rising, Crying Out, I think that's the name of that video that's about the uranium mining in Wyoming. Earth Rising, Crying Out, I think that's the name of it. Yes, it is. It's really Crying Earth Rise Up. That's the name of it. And this is a video that people ought to see. And it's about the uranium mining that is taking place. And it is really sad. But and this is in John Barrasso's state. This is why I bring it up, because he obviously, it's not that big of a deal to him if he's willing to support this other thing about uranium jobs. He's withholding a nomination for a uranium job. I mean, that actually did kind of shock me. But I want to go to the other story also. This was interesting. And so then after that, I Googled John Barrasso uranium. And I came up with this story from the Washington Examiner dated December 11, 2017. This is pretty interesting, written by John Siciliano. John Barrasso started a probe Monday into Russian-owned uranium firm in his home state of Wyoming, which he says the Obama administration misled him about the company's ability to export nuclear fuel. So the Russians lied to the Obama administration, and they said, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We ignore it. Barrasso, the Republican chairman of the Environment and Public Works Committee, sent a letter to Energy Secretary Rick Perry and Nuclear Regulatory Commission chairwoman Christine Svinicki, informing them that he is expanding a 2010 investigation into the Obama administration's approval of the sale of Uranium One's uranium recovery facilities to the Russian state-owned Atom Red Metzoloto, or ARMZ. That's why they call it ARMS. It sounds like ARMS, but it's ARMZ. Barrasso is following up on reports that showed Uranium One exported fuel through Canada while not holding a specific export license given to it by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Well, that's probably because they messed up. So this is the interesting thing. He's all about uranium, but he's really about uranium jobs. He's not about stopping uranium. I mean, that's so outrageous, you know. I don't know. I'm going to also talk to you guys about this. I found this also on the Hill. There's a lot of stories. I know it's 8:09. I'm not going to read them all unless I think they're really interesting. I won't read the whole thing. But if anybody wants to give us a call, the phone number is 718-717-8106. I'd love to hear from someone. Trump EPA revives Obama proposal to block controversial Alaska mine. And what was the date of this? 1/26/2018. And why are they doing this? The Trump administration is reviving a controversial Obama administration proposal to block a massive gold mine proposed in Alaska after previously saying it would revive the proposal. What? To block it. So they want to block it now. First they said they'd let it go, and now they're saying no. EPA Chief Scott Pruitt announced the surprise reversal late Friday, saying the EPA now believes that the Pebble Mine project would be unacceptably harmful to the Bristol Bay and its tributaries. More has to do with something connected to ANWR. My instincts tell me this. Pruitt said he made the call after speaking with various stakeholders involved in the decision, citing various concerns over the impact from the mining and the mining waste on the bay. We have restored process, reviewed comments, and heard from a variety of stakeholders on whether to withdraw the proposed restrictions on the Bristol Bay watershed, Pruitt said in a statement. Based on that review, it is my judgment at this time that any mining projects in the region likely pose a risk to the abundant natural resources that exist there. Until we know the full extent of that risk, those natural resources and world-class fisheries deserve the utmost protection. Pruitt said he would soon open a formal public comment process to get input on the agency's next step on Pebble Mine. My decision in May to withdraw the Obama administration's proposal to block Pebble Mine was one of a series of related rollbacks by Trump's EPA. Oh, okay. The Obama EPA in 2014 proposed to block the Southwest Alaska project under the Clean Water Act, despite Pebble not having submitted a plan or an application. Republicans and project backers slammed that move as a preemptive veto and said it was illegal, and the EPA never finalized it because of a federal court's hold on the process. In May, Pruitt said he would start the process of undoing the proposed veto, a move widely criticized by environmentalists and Alaska Native tribes in the area. We are committed to due process and the rule of law and regulations that are regular, Pruitt said at the time. But the EPA specified at the time that its move did not allow the mine to start operations, since the agency would still review Pebble's application if it were filed. Pebble formally applied for its permits last month. Pebble is controversial in Alaska and among its leaders. Governor Bill Walker opposes it, Representative Don Young, and Senators Lisa Murkowski and Dan Sullivan. All the Republican senators are Republican, and Bill Walker is an independent, want to allow Pebble to apply for a permit, but do not want the mine to hurt the Bristol Bay ecosystem, especially the salmon there. So they reversed it. They just went in and said, Obama, okay, get rid of it. And so now they're having to go backwards. That's what that's really all about. I don't know. Man, I don't think our country is very healthy right now, man. We need a therapist, that's for sure. Okay. I think we need an impeachment process. I'm all about and I think we ought to start impeaching some of the Congress people, actually. There's a whole list of them we could get rid of. They are doing nothing but harm our government. I mean, they are not upholding, Devin Nunes, for one, ought to go. I mean, my guess is he's financially tied in with the Russians himself, so he's all nervous that they're going to catch him too. And Nancy Pelosi has to go. I mean, seriously, when are they going to let that dog get retired, man? That is just I don't know. I don't even know if she's alive anymore. She looks like a clone to me. I'm going back to some of these stories that I wanted to read to you. So hold on. The blog. Oh. I was looking up Trump and uranium, and it's very interesting. I don't know if you remember a few months back we had on a person that I met on Twitter who was talking about Serco, S-E-R-C-O, or yes, it's S-E-R-C-O, Serco, and their fingers are tied into everything, and they actually have something called a Trump project. So that was pretty interesting. So I'm gonna go back to the Hill because I like reporting on the Hill, and I also want to get to Hervé Courtois' articles that he sent me. That they were blogs that they translated, and so I'm going to read those to you. If anybody wants to call in, you can. The phone number is 718-717-8106. Pretty sure I'm set up to take calls. I've been able to do that for a long time, yeah. So this thing about Fukushima coming up and everybody just sort of ignoring it. I know that there's going to be protests at the Japanese government's embassies, but I don't know if there's going to be any protests at the International Atomic Energy Agencies. I wonder if we could figure out where they're at. Because the Japanese government is doing what it's told. Hervé Courtois runs a website called Dunrenard, D-U-N-R-E-N-A-R-D, WordPress. This is dated January 28th, 2018. I'm going to read the whole thing. And it is called The Corium of Reactor 2, Fukushima Daiichi is clearly visible. And he has photos posted, which you guys can go and look at his website if you want to see the photos, but frankly, they're grotesque. They look just like you think. They look like the bottom of a cave, really, like a way deep, deep cave where they get those stalactites, and it just starts to, everything creeps down and everything's brown and dark. So this is what it says. It has been almost 7 years since this deadly magma was created thanks to the imbecility of men. 7 years that we talk about it without ever really seeing it. And now TEPCO in January 2018 unveils for the first time and in a very discreet manner some very telling images of the corium of Fukushima Daiichi's Reactor 2. Above, illustration, screenshot made from a TEPCO video. At first, all the media published, again, the photos provided by TEPCO, where one sees, for example, a piece of fuel assembly's handle. It was deduced that the rest had melted, but nothing more could be said. In a second time, 3 days later, TEPCO added a video of 3 minutes 34 that shows a selection of footage filmed inside the containment. In this video, we see very precisely corium flows that have solidified on metal structures under the reactor vessel. The cameras that filmed this hyper-radioactive material was designed to support 1,000 sieverts. But this device cannot hide the ionizing radiation that forms many random clear points on the film. The men who manipulated the probe outside the containment were certainly irradiated because the dose rate is still very high in the reactor. But TEPCO has not yet released this information. To summarize images, what happened in March 11th, the corium of Reactor 2 passed through the reactor vessel, made it a 1 meter wide large hole in the platform just below the reactor vessel. Then it continued on its way, encountering obstacles, forming stalactites in various places. And then he shows a range of photos that looks just like that. Finally, it spread to the bottom of the containment by cutting into the concrete, and there we lose track because the investigation could not go further. It has gone far off. Has it gone far off the ground plate? Did it join the toric pool by the pipes connecting the enclosure and the pool? Let's not forget that an explosion was heard by technicians on March 15, 2011 at 6:10 from Reactor 2. Steam explosion? Do not forget that the water that is injected continuously to cool corium does not fill the enclosure because it is no longer intact. The water is permanently contaminated by the corium before reaching the bottom of the plant and the groundwater. Do not forget that this moving groundwater flows into the Pacific despite the ice wall, which is not perfectly watertight. It will be observed that TEPCO has not yet dared to provide a picture of the hole in the reactor vessel. It's like the explosion of reactor 4. There are things that are not better, that are better not, excuse me, I'm going to read that again. It's like the explosion of reactor 4. There are things that are better not to be disclosed because they tarnish the image of civil nuclear. Exactly. In the same manner, people in charge of communication preferred to broadcast uncertain images of the 19th of January rather than these very interesting images which I extracted from the video. And he gives a video link to this conversation on YouTube. And I'm going to open it in a different link. I don't think you'll hear it. I want to make sure it doesn't play, because they usually do when you start it. And it is called on YouTube. You can get it at, it's in French, you guys. I'm going to read it like it says it in English. Investigation du 19 janvier 2018 dans le réacteur de Fukushima Daiichi. Okay, so that's it. It's in French, but it's from Blog Fukushima, published January 26, 2018, and you guys can actually find it. I don't know if we'll be able to put the link. We always say we're going to put the links in the show, but sometimes that doesn't work. So you can find it on YouTube. Certainly robotics in a radioactive environment has made real progress, but that hides the reality. We have not yet invented the machines that can dismantle this Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant. And the 40-year promise to complete this dismantling will certainly be insufficient. Let's not forget that there are in all 3 coriums to recover and swimming pools full of fuel to empty. 3 swimming pool fulls. 3 coriums to recover, if we can recover them at all, if they haven't just blown up and gone into everywhere. While TEPCO amuses us with its technique, TEPCO hopes to release 1 million tons of radioactive water in the Pacific that it has collected on the site, as if this ocean has not already suffered enough. It makes it possible to forget it also makes it possible to forget the thousands of people suffering from thyroid disorders or other various pathologies due to radioactivity, and the tens of thousands of displaced people who are forced to return to contaminated territories. Let's wait for the big communication from TEPCO. The athletes of 2020 at the Tokyo Olympics must be amazed by the Japanese hypertechnicality as to forget the basic dangers of ambient radioactivity. And that is for sure. It has been a long time, and we are forgetting. We are saying nothing. They are about to dump, and they have been dumping it, but 1 million tons at one time, one release, 1 million tons. They just plan on dumping all those containers in from then on. You know what's going to happen once they dump the containers? Their plan is to just dump it into the ocean on a regular basis. Just keep dumping. Let every government ignore the most incredible worldwide catastrophe happening on our planet on the edge of our Pacific Ocean, and they plan now just to dump 1 million tons and then just not accumulate it. They don't plan on gathering up more tons. This is old water. So what they're doing is they have 1 million tons, but they have other tanks that they are going to wait for 3 to 4 years and then dump that. This is a worldwide catastrophe where governments of the world need to all put their heads together and figure out how to make it stop. Because we can't keep dumping contaminated water into the Pacific nonstop. Hervé says it very succinctly here. Let's wait for the big communication from TEPCO. The athletes of 2020 must be amazed by the Japanese hyper-technicality so as to forget the basic dangers of ambient radioactivity. So what, the Japanese are like the experimentation to see how we can actually make it really work? I mean, that is really the outrage here. 20 millisieverts per year. There's another blog by lsfields.org that Hervé sent me, and I'm going to read this also. Unless somebody calls in. So if someone wants to call in, the number is 718-717-8106. Let me check my options to make sure that I actually can still receive calls, because maybe I messed it up. Calls. Allow anyone to call me, so anyone can call me. So there you go. So the number is 718-717-8106. And here we go. Since the phone's not ringing off the hook here. In October 2016, Liz participated in a study tour of Fukushima organized by Green Cross Switzerland, the international environmental NGO founded by Mikhail Gorbachev. 20 millisieverts per year is an exhibition of her photographs and text presented as detailed captions. The text includes scientific information, statements by scientists and politicians, and by some of the people Liz met in Fukushima. The exhibition will be held at the Creative Innovation Center, CIC, Taunton, Taunton, Somerset, January 23rd through February 17th, 2018. So it just opened up, and let me get the address of where this place is, because if you can go there, this would be pretty awesome. And actually, maybe this is something Thomas Ackerman might be interested in. So where is this art center? Well, for goodness sakes, what's the address? They don't have it live. Where's the address? The address is, I don't know. What's that address? It has it listed on the map. I can't quite get it. So maybe that's the address. Creative Innovation Center, CIC, Memorial Hall, Paul Street, Taunton, Somerset, TA1 3PF is conveniently located in Taunton Town Center in a multi-story park meters away. And I am in the United Kingdom. That's where it's at. So if you guys are in the United Kingdom, you may understand where this is. So maybe that's why I didn't have any understanding of how to communicate the address. Let's go back to this little story. So that's where it's at. It's going on right now, January 23rd to February 17th, 2018. In March 11th, an earthquake and tsunami triggered a nuclear disaster at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant in Japan. This resulted in radioactive fallout contaminating at least 8% of the land surface of Japan and the evacuation of 164,865 people. After 6 years of multifaceted catastrophe continues, despite extensive remediation efforts and spiraling costs, as well as the unresolved crisis at the Daiichi nuclear plant itself, urban and rural areas remain highly contaminated, and severe physical, psychological, social, and economic consequences continue to unfold for many people. The 20 millisieverts per year exhibition titles refers to the maximum dose of ionizing radiation originating from a nuclear power plant to which citizens of Fukushima can now be exposed to in a year. In the rest of Japan and the rest of the world, the maximum permitted non-occupational dose to a citizen is 1 millisievert per year, as recommended by the International Commission on Radiological Protection. The raising of this annual threshold to 20 millisieverts per year puts enormous pressure on many of those who evacuated, compulsorily as well as voluntarily, to return to live in areas which are still contaminated, as the financial support for them to live elsewhere has terminated in March 2017. So just going on 1 year. Some of those who were compulsorily evacuated are relieved return to their former home. That's not quite a functional sentence. Some of those who were compulsorily evacuated are relieved to return to their former homes, despite the concern they may have about the increased risk to their health from living in areas with such high levels of contamination. But others are outraged by the loss of financial support, not wanting to accept the increased risk to their health, and an even greater risk to the health of their children, who are much more sensitive to the effects of ionizing radiation. They feel betrayed by the government as well as by the many in the media and the scientific and medical communities who downplay the risks and support the policy of raising the radiation exposure threshold to 20 millisieverts per year. Many people in Japan and elsewhere consider this to be a serious breach of human rights. The exhibition text includes statements by some of the people which reveal some of the ways they are responding to the catastrophe. In addition to the photographs and text, booklets containing statements, letters, and speeches by the evacuees from Fukushima are provided for visitors to take away. In August 2017, the exhibition grew into a film, also titled 20 millisieverts per year, within a soundscape by musicians Sian Ciaran from Super Furry Animals and Mailer Tomos, film footage and text by Liz, newsreel and interview clips and editing and post-production by Creative Collective, FFLOC. So then there's a petition, request for you can sign, there's a link to it. It says, request for a fair judgment in the Fukushima evacuees trial in Tokyo. Wow. And then there's also a link if you want to get the 20 millisieverts per year link. She gives you a link to that. That was kind of a shock. Thank you, Hervé, for sending me those stories, because people have forgotten that this is not something that, and okay, when you attempt, if anyone ever attempts to basically look up Fukushima, let's just type in, well, let's type in Chernobyl too, and see what it says to Chernobyl and Fukushima news, because they're kind of Chernobyl, Fukushima, Hanford. There is Hanford news to report in Hanford, actually. In Hanford, in Washington State, they actually passed legislation that allows the workers to get to have their medical bills paid. That's basically what happened. Oh, hold on just 1 second. I think we have a phone call. I hear it ringing, but I don't see it. Oh, there you are. See if I can bring you in at the group call. Good morning. This is Lonnie Clark, the Age of Fission radio show. Well, they didn't want to be on the air. It was an accident. Somebody did call in, you see. Hello?
Yes. Hello.
Hi, did you call into the Age of Fission radio show?
I sure did.
Well, I recognize this voice. This is my niece, Tiana. Hi, Tiana.
Hello, Auntie. How are you?
I'm doing good. So we were just talking about Fukushima being an outrage. They're about to dump 100,000 tons of radioactivity right into the ocean.
On top of what's been going unchecked this whole time.
Yeah, they're about
You're
to
kidding.
do it. No, they want to. Let me get back to the article. It's pretty interesting. I mean, we know that they plan on doing it. They've been talking about it because they don't have anywhere for it to put it. That's really the issue. Is they can't keep they're drowning in nuclear waste. So their answer is, let's just start dumping it in the ocean. We'll clean it and let it cool down for a few years.
That's going to kill everything in the ocean. And in the meantime, everybody that eats anything in the ocean. That's asinine. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so you can't cuss on the air because KEPW, thank you for them. They carry our show, and they're an FM radio station. Just a little reminder.
Oh. Sorry.
That's all right. You're getting close to it. I heard
it doesn't make sense.
So did you call in with something that you wanted to talk about, or were you listening to the show, or what? Is there something on your mind you wanted to talk about?
Oh, there's at least 100 things I would love to talk about. Fukushima is a big one. I don't understand how they're okay with killing our oceans and our planet, and that means everybody on the planet. It's frustrating.
Well, see, they believe that they have a better plan because they have found underground oceans, and I think what they're planning on doing is, my opinion, this is just an opinion, this is an opinion show in some regards. My opinion is that they're culling the population. They are really intentionally, letting it go to hell, and then they're going to break out their... And I think there's
that doesn't
a
make
solution.
sense, though. They're part of the population.
I had actually found an article, which I couldn't find. I accidentally linked out from all of the things that I found. But there's a microscope. They're coming out with this. They know these solutions exist. Because we have, people like Chuck Hyman, who runs Mid-America Restoration. I mean, he basically sells microbes that you can pour. He has a fogger that, if you could afford it, you can take this stuff and fog your house and get rid of all the radioactivity inside your house. It creates a fogger, and you can clean your house up with microbes. Yeah, and you pour microbes. But so there's a story that I found on Scientific America said a microscopic fungus could mop up our Cold War era nuclear waste. They know that microbes and fungus, they found a fungus that's pretty interesting. I was just about to read this story, actually. It says that it can actually clean it up. And it's the most radioactive resistant, because at the bottom of the ocean, where there is radioactivity, high levels of it seeping out of the ocean, there's little creatures in animal life that live and thrive on that. There are creatures that thrive on this.
Yeah, like the lobsters and the shrimps and the... Yeah.
Well, I don't know if lobsters and shrimp thrive on it. I don't know if they do.
Well, they don't thrive on it, but they are the bottom feeders. They are what is most.
But I mean, like little tiny little creatures, like these microbes. These people, these things. There's lots of microbes that are, they're entities that just grow, and so.
Well,
anyways,
the question is how is them dumping the Fukushima going to affect the fact that Trump is opening oceans up for the drilling?
They're all about the energy. This is the thing I was reading about the uranium cells too. It's only about the drilling and they want to make money. That's 100% all it is.
But isn't the radiation going to cancel all that out?
No, they think that they have the medical solutions. They're really committed. They think that on the scale of human civilization and advancing human civilization and keeping humanity alive, that we have crossed a line. This is why they called themselves the nuclear priesthood, because they knew they created a dependency of the mass population on their science in order for humanity to thrive. So now the thinking is it's ridiculous to want to get rid of it because we have crossed a divide where we can't go back. And you have to have science, which is true. We do need to have science. But it's a very interesting, where they believe that we have a right to destroy everything natural on the earth and recreate it in our image because that's what God said we could do.
That's not sustainable.
According to them, it is. I mean, they don't plan on living on this planet for too long. They plan on escaping. This is the thing you understand. There's there's seriously already Star Wars going on. I mean, you should listen. I would, when I know you have 2 kids, but you can listen to her on YouTube. I always promote Jules's show Before the First Cup, because the stuff she reads on her show, go back and listen to her archives about what they're doing in the Star Wars program. I mean, nuclear is scary. The whole thing is this whole technology takeover is kind of, it is very suicidal, and we have to start confronting it. That's what I think. That's why we talk about it. And the question is, how do we be effective in doing anything that will make a difference when you realize that Serco, SERCO, is this organization that basically has its fingers, and it's straight out from the Queen of England. It's her little company, and they have their hands in everything. They're based in the United States, but they are all of the organizations are people that are and higher ups from England, and it's from Hook, the United Kingdom, and their whole thing. They are. So how do we fight that when we don't really have an effective government? So that's what we're seeing right now. When we're outraged about Trump getting away with what he did, but I was just saying that I think we need to start with the Congress. This Congress is not doing its job. I mean, for them to be defending and not, I mean, the government is just breaking down its entire effectivity.
It's worldwide. It's not just our government.
Well, look, we can't fix worldwide.
Find that acceptable. We don't have a choice. We have no other option but to fix it worldwide.
No,
because what they do affects us here. Absolutely, we have to. Because what they're doing is affecting globally. We don't have a choice. What they're doing doesn't just affect them; it affects the whole planet.
Oh, you mean our government?
Any government, period. What others do affects everybody on this planet. They can't be allowed to just destroy it and no consequence. It needs to stop. You don't just start with one government and say that's not okay. You can't stop one government and expect the rest of them to stop.
Okay, so that's what the United Nations is all about, but we see how effective the United Nations is. That's the issue, right? I mean, the United Nations, that was their idea, because we can't have anarchy. That's where anarchy starts at the end, at the international laws. They try to stop the anarchy, because, the idea of what makes a sovereign state is that you can do whatever you want within your own borders and people leave you alone. And then after that, it's all for one and one for all. You know what I mean? Like one person for themselves, that each nation wants. Like Trump says, I'm going to try to get the best thing for my nation, just like you should be getting the best thing for your nation. The downside is what's his interpretation of the best thing for our nation? Like, we don't agree with him on that, because he's talking about really himself and all of his rich friends. He could care less about our nation. I mean, they opened up
my whole point. That's why the government, the whole idea of government and me for me and you for you needs to end.
Yes.
It's not me for you and me for me. It's all of us together. Yeah. We're all on this planet
together. Well,
together.
that's what our Constitution, this is what all of us who are learning that we really don't have an active Constitution are sort of shocked about, right? Because we've been going on this whole idea. I think that's maybe that's what Trump's favor, Traitor Trump. I call him Traitor Trump because I think he is most treason is not done out of greed. Most treason is done because you want money. And getting the money is, how do you do it? You make deals with people that don't have your country's best interest at heart. And you turn the other way when you know that they're doing stuff. And that's what he's going to get into trouble for. Plus money laundering. He's Mafia Don. That's really his name, isn't it? Mafia Don. He thinks he's Mafia Don. He thought he was going to lead the mafia nation. That's what he was. That's what his bullying tactics is all about. So
have you seen the commercial his son did for gun silencers?
No, but whatever. I mean, what do you expect? I mean, I think he's, putting his children in the limelight is just another form of abuse by this guy. He is just such an abuser. They are completely unqualified to be out in public and be in government.
Every one of them.
Yes, I mean, every single one. It is, when he sat Ivanka in for the G20, instead of bringing qualified advisors that have been on the government, that understand our government's policy, that could explain things to him, he sat his daughter next to Angela Merkel. That to me was a form of abuse to her, not an honor. She was way over her head. But that's him being an abuser because he can't help but be abusive. He is just such a disrespectful, sad, super insecure human being. I just can't get over him. But, I mean, again, so, hey, in Seattle, they're probably going to be having, if you're interested in Fukushima, I have heard that at all of the Japanese embassies in all the major cities, there's going to be protests on 3/11. And then on the following Monday, because it is a Saturday, let me get to that month. I'm pretty sure it's a Saturday. 3/11 is a Sunday. So the following Monday, there's a boycott not to buy anything from Japan.
Really?
Yeah. It's like a one-day boycott, just nothing from Japan. Don't buy. Make sure that if you buy anything, you don't buy anything that is imported or made in Japan. And so
I think that should have been done the minute Fukushima was gone unchecked.
You mean maybe we should implement that right now? Like, forget that. I actually don't buy any of their food. I would not ever buy any. I actually don't. I did buy Sterling a sweater about 2 years ago that she wanted from Japan, and I was like a little freaked out, when it came. It took about 2 months to get here, but when it came, I actually did hold it up to a Geiger counter to make sure. Yes, I did. Actually, I did, and it was didn't even register. It didn't register. It was very, very minimal, so that kind of made me feel better. But it was on the far end of Japan. It was far away from where Fukushima was. I mean,
I don't understand how they still have people living on that island. That's absurd to me.
You mean the whole of Japan? They have to. Where are they going to go? And the reality is, when we look at where we're going to put people and where and how much other radioactivity there is on the planet, I mean, Fukushima is just the elephant in the room that we can't ignore. But we have people living in radioactive contaminated sites all over the planet, at least in the northern hemisphere. It's highly radioactive. When you consider that they did 2,000, I used to think it was 1,000, but I've since learned that it was like over 2,000 bombs they dropped on our planet in the northern, that all went on the northern hemisphere, portions of the southern hemisphere, all up and down the Pacific, in the United States, all over Europe. They just dropped bombs, just boom, 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 all through the 50s, early 60s, 40s, late 40s, 50s, 60s. There was this huge nuclear thing. We got so contaminated. Plutonium's half-life is 27,500 years.
In this country?
All over the world, honey. Everywhere.
Oh, yes. God.
So it's like your little come to Jesus moment when you have that. Exactly. That's exactly what I call the come to Jesus moment, when you realize, and that's why I say listen to what Jules is talking about, because Jules' show, First Cup in the Morning, you can get it on YouTube if you don't come to our website, but on UCY TV. She talks about the Star Wars, the things that they are doing to bioengineers because they know we're in deep. They plan on doing other things. Like, they are planning on making, weird human things. And they're actually not planning on it. They're doing it. And she reads these articles where they're just reporting on it. The information's out there if you know where to look. And you're like, what? I'm sitting here typing, working on work, and I'm like, say what? What?
So it's available information, and you get to know about it, too bad.
Pretty much. Pretty much, yeah. Try to stop it. get engaged. There are action groups that are attempting, just like there's anti-nuclear movement people, anti-uranium, anti-plastic, there's people that are pushing back against these technologists that want to maintain our Earth. There's a lot of organizations you can get involved in. But so far, since the 40s and 50s, have we really stopped them from doing jack? I guess we did stop them from building 300 nuclear power facilities in the United States, and now we only have 129 or something like that.
300? Why would you even need 300?
Because they wanted to have excess energy to sell. And let's just be clear, these nuclear power facilities are needed to have current nuclear weapons, period. You need to have current fuel. Yes, that's the byproduct.
I'm so confused by this whole nuclear industry. They know it's deadly and poisonous. Yes. Why would you continue distributing and it doesn't make any fucking sense. Sorry.
You said the F word. You said the F word.
I'm sorry. No, it doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry. It's just frustrating. You're killing our planet. Why would you continue?
51 minutes. Well, I'm going to have to call her. I'm going to tell them not to put this on. Because they want money. Do you get it? It's all about the money.
Okay, but you can't take money with you when you die.
They have given up on our planet. You don't understand. They think they're not going to die. Their attitude is this: yes, it contaminates you, but so does a lot of other things. And what it does is it affects your quality of life. You don't just immediately die. You get sick, you may be sterile, your children might have problems all their lives. You might have an autistic child or Down syndrome, but that child can live. We have all the medical facilities that we can do. And if they have autism or they have diabetes, we can control that. Same thing for your heart condition and your heart blood pressure and all that stuff that doesn't work now. It's not just nuclear. If you get it, it's the whole thing. This is where I sort of transformed. It's not just nuclear. It's all of it. The electromagnetic rays that are coming off of our cell phones, that are blasting us from our smart meters, that are coming from the laptops, that are coming from the Wi-Fi. And then we have the geoengineering to doing whatever that's doing to us. And then the chemicals. You go to the grocery store. You buy food that has chemicals in it. It's plastic. You drink that and eat that every day. How many people absolutely refuse to eat food with chemicals in it?
Okay, but that's kind of making my whole point. Is we're already being blasted by what we eat and what we breathe and what we wear, and why add to it with nuclear contamination? We're already being overloaded.
I think their point is, why not? It doesn't matter. And it is extremely profitable. They make a lot of money. They can make the most powerful weapons in the world. They can use that nuclear fuel, that nuclear fission. They can actually infusion. They can use that for scientific purposes. So why not? People are going to die anyways. That's their point. See, that's really fundamentally, and that's in fact the message that most people living in this civilization unconsciously accept. That's why they don't want to talk about Fukushima. That's why they don't care. Whatever, I live 15 miles from a nuclear power facility. Yeah. So what? It's not hurting me. Literally, this is what people accept. And they say, well, it's safer than the coal, or it's safer than the oil companies, and it's safer than this. The point is, it's kind of ridiculous how we've just accepted that, well, we'll take being safe. You know what I mean?
That's my whole point. We are not safe at all. There is no safeness about it.
Well, let's just get rid of the chemicals. The world wasn't very safe anyways. People lived in their little houses to protect themselves from the elements, right? So life is not easy, but what's happened is our disregard for our environment. It is a shock, and that's why there's kind of this divide between the money and the environmentalists. And that's, academically, that's called the anthropomorphic versus the enviromorphic attitude. Like, if you believe in the environment has precedent over the rights of humans, then you believe that the environment has, you're considered one thing. And then you have on the opposite side the anthropomorphic, like that humans have a right to manipulate and use anything on the earth, and if they destroy the natural order, they have a right to keep making it work for them because that's their God-given right.
That's ridiculous.
Well, that's what we're living with, my dear.
I know. You know, I've read the Bible repeatedly, and nowhere does it say you have the right to destroy what I gave you. That's ridiculous.
But it does say that man has dominion over earth.
Dominion does not mean destruction.
Well, you know, maybe you should become a minister. But the question is, what do we do to stop it? We have this machine, the industrial military complex, that is driving its own. I mean, I just finished reading this about there's a GOP senator who is blocking one of Trump's nominees because he wants them. Do you know our government sells uranium, excess uranium, to pay for the cleanups? So he's blocking it because he wants them to stop selling the uranium so they can have the uranium jobs at home. He sees it as them giving jobs away by selling uranium so that we can have our own miners and our own people getting sick from uranium mining. Like, seriously. It is a shock. It is a shock. Yes, I know. It is a shock. But that is our reality.
It's terrifying.
Well, I refuse to be terrified. I think that it's better for us to refuse to be terrified. You know, it's even like kind of like that fake it till you make it thing. Like, at what point do you just decide? Right. I mean, we have a lot on our plates. We have a big mess in our hands. For me, Fukushima opened. The 2011 got me woken up to the idea that our government wasn't running the way we thought it was, that we've been sold, right? And so then Fukushima happened, and like, seriously, it's not just a conspiracy, a worldwide conspiracy. It's a worldwide action, and the plan is pretty open. We can see it. They're destroying our environment. For some reason, some agenda, we have no reason. You and I are rational human beings. We can't figure out why they're doing it. But they're doing it for some reason, because it's intentional. Fukushima is 7 years on, and they're not really doing anything about it. These governments are just like, oh, yeah, well, we're believing the IAEA. I mean, that's what I think. We need protests at the offices of the IAEA. I think that's a big issue. But for sure, myself, I'm going to go to the Portland protest. What?
Well, I'm just saying, I think it's going to take a lot more than just one city, one country, one place on this planet to stand up and say something. I think it's going to have to take us as a collective. Everybody, all the 99% on the whole planet.
I am personally, for myself, on 3/11, I'm going to go protest at the Japanese consulate in Portland, and I'm sure there will be other groups there.
Good for you.
And I hope that you go to the Seattle consulate and protest there yourself on the same day. So, look, we have 20 seconds, you guys. Thank you for calling in, Tiana. It's made the conversation very interesting. And put your courage feet on. Thank you guys for joining us. Remember, tell your friends and family they can find us on the internet, www.ucy.tv/AOF. And we'll talk to you guys next Monday. Ciao.
I love you.